Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Katie, and today I thought we'd do a kind of project log style video for making the real version of my B6Slim cover for next year. So this is the prototype. I've showed it here before. It looks very janky, but that's fine. But I've been putting things in and out of it, seeing how I feel about the dimensions, and I think we're good to go. So this it's time to do in my nice leather. Editing Katie here. I just want to make it clear, this is what I call a project log. It's just taking you along with me as I go through a project so you can see how I think about things and what's going on in my mind. It's not a tutorial, and I don't always do things like the best way. It's very much based on what I have, what I know how to do, that kind of thing. So if you think that's fun, stay tuned and hang out with me. If you think that's going to be like kind of annoying to watch, catch another video. Buy a Moterm instead. They now come on B6Slim. All right, on to the video. This is the like mulberry leather that I've got from the leather guy. They are sold in like 12 by 12 inch pieces. It is a pull-up leather, so it changes colors where it folds. So that's kind of some of the look that we've got going on here. I did a whole thing to try and get this design on here with the foil quill and my silhouette. It was not enjoyable. I don't really recommend, but here we are. Here are my failures. But I've got enough to make the cover. I've got enough to make some pockets, and I've got some scrap to do some testing with. So that's good. This is a fairly thick leather, and rather not just thick, but kind of stiff, which I like. I've skived, I think, around the edges and on the spine a little bit so that it folds a little nicer. I'm gonna do the same for the pockets here as well. Let me show you what I use for that. So I got this from the leather guy as well, and it's like a razor blade that's like bent, and you just kind of drag it across. It's not easy to do a perfect job, but it is easy to do a pretty good job. And so I've gone around the edges, and I'm going to do that here. It's just going to make sewing through this a little easier. A lot of things that are going to happen are not going to happen on screen. Maybe I'll do a little b-roll, but it's not easy to film some of this stuff, and also my studio is a mess, so there's that. So I've already trimmed this to height based on my prototype. Oh, I guess it's a little taller, so I can trim this to height, and then I definitely still need to trim it to width. So here's my packet of stuff that I'm definitely working with, and then it's possible I'm sneaking this Hobonichi Hobonichi Weeks in here as well. And these are a little bit taller, substantially narrower, but just a smidge taller, and I think I can incorporate that in here. It's tall enough in this one, but it's close. So I probably want my purple one to be a little, like a smidge taller than this green one. And honestly, that's where we're at when I'm also gonna like clean up the edges a little. So I'm not gonna trim the height at all. Thanks, past Katie. But I do need to decide the width. So right now this is about 3/4 maybe of an inch wider, and I don't think I need all of that width, but I probably want a little bit of it. So I've tested these, and it's actually pretty good fit here with all of this stuff in here. If I take the weeks out, then the cover covers my pen loops a little better, and I think that's the right like compromise for not having it be too wide when I don't have the weeks in there and too narrow if I do. So I'm actually going to keep it to be pretty much the same width as this green one, but I do want to have a little extra room to trim the edges because I don't do a perfect job. So this is 10 and 3/4. I'm going to trim it to 11 inches. Do I have, can I do this on screen? Oh, I don't have a good way of rounding the corners on these, which is too bad, but that's where we're at. So we'll try decide if I'm trying to hack it or not. So the next step, which I am going to do off camera, is to do the pockets. Well, is to skive the pockets so that they're less thick. I can decide now with you how wide I want the pockets to be. That is somewhat defined by something I don't have with me. Hold on. So I want to fit this little reporter pad in there. So it needs to be, pockets need to be at least 4 inches wide. And the whole kit and caboodle here is only about that wide. So our pockets are going to be almost as wide as the book itself. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do that here. This ruler is 4 inches wide. So there's one pocket, and the other pocket. So the way I'm gonna do this slit here for this is I'm gonna figure out where I want this to hang. Just like here. And then the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, with the things I already own, is to use one of these and to put a hole in here on each end of the line, and then to use a blade of some sort. I'm gonna use this rotary cutter, and that makes it easier to not go past. So I was a little timid there. And now this should be able, if it's not quite, yeah, it slides in, and now it's like that in my pocket. I'm actually going to do that on both pockets because I don't know if I want this in the front or the back, and I think it could be useful either way. So I'm going to do that, then I'm going to skive the edges, and I'll come back probably then. Okay, this shot is going to get increasingly messy, and if that bothers you, I'm sorry, but you can be glad you can't see the rest of this room right now. So I did a little skiving, not a ton, but I did also do a test on my sewing machine, and I actually genuinely can get through all of this leather without it being skived. So that should be okay. I also picked this pink thread because I think it goes nicely, and I picked my stitch length. So this one here. Not focusing. The other thing I need to know is that the feed dogs do like damage the bottom of the leather, so I need to put like some tissue paper or something underneath. So here's a general disclaimer for this whole event, which is that this is not how like your fancy leather covers are made, right? Those, you know, your Bujo planner people in your chic sparrow design are eternal leather goods. They are using like much more professional equipment and skill set than I am, so this is just a crafter person DIY version. So A good way now would be to glue this in here. They would also do a nicer version on how these pockets are opened. They've got like a beveler and stuff. I don't have that, and I'm just using what I've got because I have a lot of things. So I just like to put some tape here to hold my pockets in the right location. The nice thing about this stiff leather, which it's the stiffest leather I've ever used, is that I don't think it's gonna like shift or grow on me. I might still put some clips to help hold everything in place, but I like having the tape. So sometimes what I do is I draw my stitch line, and maybe I ought to do that here. If so, I should do it before I put these pockets on. My sewing machine, I'm using a vintage 1591 sewing machine. I'll maybe take a little b-roll for you. And I can't do this on camera. And it's a lovely machine, but you can't move. It's a straight stitch only, and it's got a certain foot and whatever. So if I want to sew exactly on a spot, it's not always the easiest. So I'm actually going to draw a seam line. I'm going to come back after that. Okay, I've drawn a stitch line on. Hopefully I'll be able to see it. It's a little rough in a couple spots. So I'm going to reattach my pockets here. And I'm going to stitch on this line here. I did prove, again, it's not perfectly square, but we will see if we can fix that in trimming. Otherwise, we will learn to get over it. So that's my plan, using the stitch length and whatever. I'm going to find some tissue paper to put underneath the bottom to protect it from the feed dogs. Okay, we're back, and that went surprisingly well so far. Did this on some packing paper, which I've never done before, but I think it protected the bottom, and hopefully it perforated. Let's see. Well enough. Yeah, so I might have to be doing a little bit of tedious pulling paper out later, but no, that worked beautifully. And my tension isn't perfect, and that's unfortunate on the back. It's good. It's good with the paper. It's not perfect on the bottom. That's too bad, but I'm just gonna let it go. So I'm gonna peel all this off. It's gonna make a lot of noise, and we'll talk next steps. Okay, we are back. What did I do? I tore off the paper. I really do wish that my tension on the inside was a little better, but it looks nice from the outside. There's still a little bits of paper that I'll fidget with later. I knotted the ends and buried them. That's not how one would professionally do it, but that's what I got. And then I trimmed up the edges. And this is just a limitation of my equipment and abilities, but we do have a little bit of wobbly seam here, bigger space here than that, but I don't think it will draw the eye too badly. Usually that's why I pick a least contrasting thread, and I think this is going to get lighter with time as the pull-up shows. So I'm not going to let it bother me, but obviously this is why this kind of DIY thing is not for everyone. Let's look at our stuff here and see how we feel. So yeah, should be able to fit the height of a Weeks just fine. I'll put the holes, the TN holes, as close to the top and bottom as I can. So all of that feels good. And without the Weeks, yeah, that also still feels good. So I feel good about those choices. If anyone is curious, 11 by 8. So if anyone's curious about that. So the next step is to put holes in for the TN strings. And what I think I'm going to do is actually make them pretty widely set. So I'll have one in the middle. I'm gonna do 3 holes, one in the middle and 2 that are each like half an inch apart or so. And I think that gives me the best chance to have this weeks in there without it being too weird. I plan on probably not using one of the strings. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And we're gonna see where that gets me. So I know where the halfway point is, and I will mark that with my pen. I've got my holes puncher here. I am gonna have an elastic problem. I don't have enough elastic at the moment to go through that many times, but we can at least test it. The other thing I'm gonna want to do is have a closure, I think. I was planning on having that come out of here, but that's gonna be slightly a problem. I'm gonna have to get a little creative about that. We're gonna worry about that later. So I'm gonna mark out where I want these holes and punch them and string them. All right, team, we are at the end here, and the sun has changed. So I strung it. As I said, I don't have a long enough one to go through all 3 right now, but for the moment 2 works. And then I made a little, whatever this is called, closure. I might take that off and skive that, but so that it's a little more flexible. But here it is. And then I took the opportunity to condition the leather because it was looking a little dull, a little worn from all the things. All the ways I'd manhandled it, and you know, it's new, so I wanted it to feel new. So I'm not going to put the weeks in it because it's got that white cover, and I just conditioned the leather, and it's still a little moist, but there's that. And then I did confirm that it fits with the weeks in it, but let's look and see what it's like without the weeks. So without the weeks, I think I would put it on the middle string, but I don't currently have the middle string, so let's put it through 2 strings. And that also, oops, fits really nicely here. I got our little band. I might also put 2 more holes in here. It's kind of a long waist, but at least it's sturdy enough leather. So I think we are in great shape, and I also think that I'm never going to notice anymore now that my stuff is in here that the stitching isn't perfect. And I will come back and do a video in the future about my lineup and what I'm using things for, but I think it's going to be a very all-in-one system. Not all in one book, but all in one container. And I'm very excited for this to be the container that I am at least starting the year off with. At some point, I'll get the itch and want to change it up. If anyone's curious, from the beginning of this video to now, it's been about an hour and a half. And there is an absolute mess around me, so we'll have to do something about that. But I'm quite pleased. I'm very eager to get the new year started. I don't really want to start using even the cover before the new year so that I'm excited about the new year, but it's very hard. I want to get started. So thanks for hanging out with. I hope you enjoyed the time. I think it's fun to see other people's projects, even if I'm not like doing it along. So I will talk to you again soon. Bye, friends.